If you're looking to awaken higher consciousness, here are 5 tips that are going to support sustainable manifestation. What's going on, reality hackers? It's Michael, and I'm super excited to talk to you today. Today, we're going to be talking about how to awaken higher consciousness. What we're going to be talking about specifically are 5 key concepts that if you take and apply to your life starting today, you will begin to habitualize consistent and sustainable manifestation. So the first thing we want to talk about here is we want to understand the cause of reality. If you've read any New Age thought books, if you've read any Neville, if you've read any Abraham, if you've read any Eckhart Tolle, you will understand that consciousness is the underlying and fundamental reality and causality from which all of our experiences come into being from. And this is tremendously important to understand because for most of us, we attribute what's called second cause. Second cause is a very interesting place to be because what we're doing when we apply second cause to our lives is we actually allow things outside of us to determine what is objectively true for us. So if you're wanting to create a sustainable manifestation practice, applying second cause to your life is not going to be one of the ways to do so. What you need to do is you need to understand that consciousness is the one and only reality, and what you focus on becomes the substance of your experience. Ultimately, the second thing that's going to radically transform your relationship with manifestation and lead you to more of a sustainable place and consistently creating what you want and achieving your goals is ultimately putting more attention on consciousness than the world, right? For most of us, we're so consumed with what's going on around us. We're consumed with the news, with politics, with everything outside of our own fundamental well-being. And to no avail, science has begun to show that ultimately entertaining ourselves with all of the issues of the world around us that are rooted in fear actually destroys our immune system, making us more susceptible to sickness and disease. So the second thing that is going to be imperative for you to understand here is that you must begin to place more of your attention on your own consciousness than on the world around you. And what does that mean? It means deliberately choosing how you're feeling. It means being around things, being in the middle of your seemingly human life, but being very conscious about what stories you're telling yourself in that moment, what biochemical responses and events are happening in your body. This is a major key that most people don't ever really begin to take into account, which is why they always find themselves boomeranging back and forth because the double-minded man is unstable in all of their ways. And ultimately, number 3 is what you can begin to do to increase the sustainability of your manifestation practice is notice where you're feeling dense. The interesting thing about density is that density is implicit of resistance and heaviness. And the truth is you are love, light, and all that is good, which is ultimately infinite in nature. In some cases, we might say massless, which in turn looks at you as the speed of light. And that might go over your head now, but we'll get back into it later. But what we really want to begin to do on a somatic level is notice density in the body, right? Whenever there's density, whenever there's heavy feelings, heavy beliefs, there is what I would call sludge. There is slowdown. There is no flow. It's a no flow zone, right? And what we can begin to do is leverage the dematerializing process from Reality Hacker that you can find in Bending Reality in order to loosen up that density. Because ultimately, if you've noticed, if you take a look at the times when you have been in the most flow in your body, you feel the least dense, you feel the lightest. It's a very real phenomenon that is occurring in your body. To the degree in which you feel light and flowy in your body, your life also begins to take on the tonalities of that substance. And I love this because ultimately what happens is we begin to dive into understanding that there's already a flow to what's going on, that things from a quantum perspective have already happened, right? The past, the present, and the future exist simultaneously. And knowing that as I release density, number 4 here, releasing density consistency leads me to lighter roads, right? The less density, the less sludge, the less resistance I have in my own body, the more I can be firmly enveloped in everything that's going on and allow myself to be led on that vibrational wavelength of flow, of goodness, of enoughness. And this is not woo, this is actually becoming real, tangible science. What you focus on becomes the substance and consistency of your experience. But ultimately, the 5th thing that you can do to make a sustainable manifestation practice is commit to these first 4 things. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to take all of these 4 points into account every single day, right? understanding that consciousness is the only reality, putting more attention on your consciousness than you are in the world around you, noticing where your consciousness is heavy and dense, focusing and committing to releasing that density, that heaviness, that resistance, living that path of least resistance, as Abraham might call it, and ultimately continuing down this path every single day, committing to your zero density well-being, right? That's something that we term in our community here at Reality Hackers, zero density state, the highest state of well-being that there is. This is where we want to be, because this is where our manifestations not only occur the fastest, but the smoothest and the flowiest. And that's what we're wanting to do here. Create a sustainable practice of creating and accomplishing goals, creating and achieving goals, conceiving and creating and generating all sorts of matter and fundamental ideas that ultimately become the totality of our experience. And so if you want more education on this insight, check out the Bending Reality in our description. Check out the Source app to help you really maintain that high state of consciousness throughout the day. There's a ton of resources for you. You're amazing. You're loved. You're powerful. You're worthy. We'll talk to you soon.